We're going to get started. There's still seats available for those who want to sit. These are the scientists. That's what it's all about. Terrific. Good afternoon. My name is Ed Clark, and I'm the business advisor to the Premier of Ontario and the chair of the Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence. I have to say I'm just overwhelmed and delighted with all of you who have taken your time to come to our event. And there's one of our great startup companies, Layer 6, Tommy and his children. It's great to see this combination of great research academics, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and government officials all coming together to try to support a great new idea. And of course, we're honored to have the Premier here, Minister Moridi, Minister Morneau, His Worship, Mayor John Tory, Marc, President of the University of Toronto, and Charles Sousa, the Minister of Finance. We are here to celebrate the launch of the Vector Institute, a new independent commercialization and research institute that will do a couple of things. It will reinforce, in conjunction with institutes in Montreal and in Edmonton, Canada's preeminent position in the fields of deep learning and reinforcement learning, and will spur economic growth by supporting scale-up firms and enabling our established firms to be best-in-class users of artificial intelligence. The new institute, while located in Toronto and associated with the University of Toronto, will collaborate with academic institutions across Ontario and as well across Canada, and in particular with the Université de Montréal and the University of Alberta. It will work closely with Next AI and the Creative Destruction Lab to continue Ontario's prominence in the AI innovation space. It will take advantage of the very large number of startups and scale-ups in cities across Ontario, but in particular in Waterloo and Ottawa, to help build a unique innovation supercluster. And it will partner with leading companies whose logos you'll see prominently displayed to advance AI research and to support the adoption and commercialization of AI technologies in Canada. The Vector Institute will build on our existing pool of globally recognized talent by training and attracting and retaining top talent in these fields from around the world. The Vector Institute will have the potential to graduate more masters, applied masters, PhDs, and postdoctoral students in the field of deep learning than any other institution in the world. This talent will be the foundation of our collective success. We're very proud of the work that's been done here in a very short period of time. To the team of the academics, government, and private sector sponsors who helped make this happen, thank you for all your hard work. Now, many Canadians feel uneasy about the future, but the answer to sluggish economic growth, globalization, slow productivity growth, potential increases in income inequality, and the rise in response to these forces of increased protectionism cannot be to let Canada become less competitive. Quite the opposite. We must make the economy more competitive, encourage more economic growth. At the same time, and importantly, we have to ensure that all Canadians benefit from that economic growth. And that is much easier to do in an economy which is highly competitive. The innovation and technological revolution sweeping the world is not just an opportunity, it is an absolute necessity for our growth and collective prosperity. We must and we can take advantage of the base we have built in innovation to make Ontario the alternative to Silicon Valley. We must move beyond supplying the best talent to Silicon Valley to having a cluster of job choices so our graduates stay here in Canada to make our existing firms better and to create new global champions. The Vector Institute is an unprecedented answer to an unprecedented opportunity, an exceptional partnership between government and industry. And industry has stepped up with both financial and intellectual support. From the small scale-ups to the largest companies in Canada, from every sector in the economy, we have had unbelievable support given and committed in a very short period of time. Everybody we talked to agreed that this was a unique opportunity to make a difference to Canada. We've agreed to establish advisory councils, one for large firms and another one for scale-up firms, to provide the Institute with direct input on how it could be very effective. And these firms have matched that desire to be involved with pledges exceeding $80 million over the next 10 years. That support has been matched by support at both levels of government. We are very grateful to everybody in this room for making this happen. We can make our businesses winners run faster. We can help our scale-ups grow into world-leading firms. We can use our talent to attract even more talent. And we can create more opportunities for our graduates to stay here. Now, before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to mention that I have been the Premier's business advisor for almost 3 years now. And I'm often asked, well, what's she like? And what is that role like? Well, first, she wants to hear what you really think. She has said to me on several occasions, Ed, you say the most outlandish things. But she clearly relishes hearing alternative views if those views come from someone who shames the same value set as she does. She is all that people say. Very smart, hardworking, capable of absorbing details across a broad front. But what makes her extraordinary to work with is she genuinely cares about people. And that comes through in every interaction. Here to talk about the province's support for our vision, please welcome a great supporter of the Institute, the Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne.
Thank you, Ed. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, bonjour, Ani. It's great to be here with you all. It's great to be here with your worship, Mayor Tory. Thank you, and Reza Maridi and Charles Souza from my team, Marc Gertler. It's a pleasure to be with every single one of you. I want to just take a moment, though, for a comment about Ed and thanking him for being such a champion of this initiative. Ed, you've been instrumental in bringing the Vector Institute to this point. You've really been a bridge between government and the private sector partners who have come together on this initiative, and we're very grateful for that. And of course, as my outlandish business advisor, you've been invaluable in terms of making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep this province competitive. So thank you very much. We owe you a debt of gratitude. And congratulations on your accomplishment as chair of the board of the Vector Institute. It's a great accomplishment. So as Ed impresses upon me regularly and said here, we're in a period of great transition in our economy. That is a fact. That's not debatable. The reality is that we're going through a transition. And that's not just here in Ontario. Technology is disrupting, it's challenging, and it's improving the way that we live and we work. When everything is changing, and when everything's changing as fast as it is, we have two options. We can follow or we can lead. And today, with the launch of the Vector Institute and with the help of everyone in this room, Ontario is once again choosing to lead. Lead in the next great leap forward with technology, in the creation and attraction of the world's best talent. And I just met a couple of people who are working here and who have come to Ontario and are in great demand around the world, and we're very glad you're here. And I'm pointing to some of the academics who have come here. We're very glad you're here. And in the attraction of new investments, new industries, new jobs and growth. In fact, the creation of the Vector Institute means that all of Canada is choosing to lead. And I want to just acknowledge Minister Morneau. Thank you so much. Partnering is the way we get to an announcement like this. It's the only way we get here, is having levels of government, people in the community, private sector, academia working together. And so, Bill, I want to just acknowledge you as a great partner, you and your government as a great partner in on this initiative. So I want to thank Jeff and all the researchers and brilliant minds whose breakthroughs in deep learning and machine learning put Ontario and Canada on the artificial intelligence map in the first place. And I want to thank the federal government and our private sector partners for seeing the potential that we've developed here in Ontario. Because we have laid the groundwork, we now have an opportunity to create a significant competitive advantage for Canada's economy. We can make sure that Ontario not only joins the rest of the world in this transformation, but that Ontario and all of its people get to benefit from the AI revolution. And that's why Ontario is pleased to contribute $50 million to launch the Vector Institute. L'Ontario est heureux d'apporter son soutien à la création de l'Institut Vecteur. Nous améliorons notre avance dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle. Cet institut aidera à attirer les meilleurs talents et rendra nos entreprises plus concurrentielles. Now, I know that the idea of artificial intelligence can make some people nervous, and not just people of my age. So it's not just about age. The truth is, AI does present its own set of challenges. Now, not the risk that computers rise up against us. Dr. Hinden assures us that that's not going to happen. But we can't deny that as machines get smarter, they will do some of the work that we do now. So as Premier, it is my job to make sure we're managing these changes in a way that creates more opportunity, more security in people's lives, not less. Because we need to embrace AI and technology. The economic and quality of life opportunities are enormous. And as Ed says, securing the lead we already have in this space and making sure we're commercializing our AI research right here at home is the key to attacking our competitiveness gap. But as we close that gap and businesses create more prosperity, we also need to have policies and programs in place to ensure that growth is fair and that prosperity is shared by everyone in our society. And that's what our government is doing. Yesterday, I was at a high school in the West End to talk to students about the changes that we're making to provide free tuition to hundreds of thousands of college and university students. We are a small population, relatively speaking. We need everyone at their best, driving that change that's happening in the economy, because artificial intelligence, for what it is driven by human imagination and human intelligence and human determination and endeavor. So we need all of that human capital to be at its very best. So we're making higher education more affordable and more accessible. We're also building new childcare spaces because we know that that has a direct impact on people's ability to participate in the economy, especially women. And we're about to launch a basic income pilot to test whether this approach could be a smarter, fairer way of ensuring that no one gets left behind as our economy changes. Ontario's economy is growing. It's growing as fast as anywhere in Canada or the developed world for that matter. But we know that people are experiencing this growth unevenly. It is not evenly shared across society. So as we support places like the Vector Institute to drive that growth by developing and attracting the best minds and building the best technology, we also need to do our best to build a fairer economy where that prosperity is shared. And that's where we're heading with this institute. The work done here will lead directly to AI applications that will improve our quality of life and even save lives. Whether it's predicting a heart attack before it happens, avoiding a collision on your commute to work, or giving students a more immersive educational experience, the work done at the Vector Institute will have positive, real results for people. It will help our businesses innovate and remain competitive. And I especially appreciate that the Vector Institute will aim to graduate more deep learning and machine learning PhDs and masters than anywhere in the world, as Ed has said. We can own this space. This is who we are. 141 years ago, Alexander Graham Bell made the world's first long-distance phone call from his home in Brantford, Ontario. And I guarantee you that there were people that were afraid of the telephone and the intrusion that it would make into their lives. Absolutely 100% certain. I know there were some in my own family back then. What is this contraption? That one phone call, though, set the stage for a century and a half of innovation in this province. Dr. Hinton and the Vector Institute may very well be setting the stage for the next century of Made in Ontario discovery. That's what it feels like today. So thank you to everyone who has made this institute possible. It is a great moment to seize the opportunities. Thank you so much. Merci. Miigwech.
So it's a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Bill Morneau. Our theme, I guess, one of the themes of today is connecting business, government, and academics. And as you all know, Bill was a very well-known, successful businessman whose firm was a leader in its field. But then he made a tough choice to leave that role and to serve Canada. Bill brings to the job incredible intellectual capacity and an ability to both see the big picture, but also translate it into an action plan. As a representative of Canada on the world stage, he continues our tradition of punching above our weight in international forums. Let me now welcome my friend, the Minister of Finance, Bill Morneau.
Well, I guess I have to start by thanking Ed for that very nice introduction. I've had the good fortune of working together with Ed in multiple ways, and in this role, certainly he's been very, very helpful in so many ways with the federal government working together with the Ontario government. And it's particularly great to be here at the Mars Discovery District today, which is a place where we had the chance to tour around and see what amazing things are going on here, and I know some of you are involved with the work. Of course, Premier Wynne, Mayor Tory, we know that there's so many people who are working to make an enormous difference in this city, in this province, and of course across the country. And it's important to recognize that this sort of discussion doesn't happen without people that are really taking enormous personal sacrifices to make a difference on all of our behalf. I know that we're here to celebrate the Vector Institute, so recognizing that Ed has had an enormous role in getting this off the ground, I just want to say that it's been wonderful to work with you to get this from our perspective, from an idea to something that now we're able to talk about and actually deliver on. Some of you might know, just a week ago, I had the honor to stand up in front of the House of Commons and to deliver the federal budget for Canada. And that budget was really very much about how we can think about making a more innovative economy and how we can ensure that Canadians have the skills in order to be successful in that innovative economy. We we see our budget this year as part of a long-term plan. And today is very much instructive in terms of the kind of things that we can do if we have that sort of long-term plan. We want to create new jobs. We want to create jobs with technologies like the ones that we witnessed in the displays here today. But we also want to make sure that Canadians, that they see that the opportunities that are there through those technologies are important for them and for their children and for the generations to come. So that means for us supporting people through their career and creating a lifelong culture of learning. It means a greater focus on science, technology, engineering, and math so that we can have young people with the skills to come into places like this tomorrow. It'll also mean training and retraining and upskilling people for the kinds of opportunities that we're going to create together. And importantly, and instructive for today, it means taking big bets on the places where we know that Canada already is a leader and we know that we can continue to be a world leader. That includes the digital space, of course, and specifically artificial intelligence and deep learning. Nous sommes chanceux au Canada d'avoir des chefs de file de partout au pays qui travaillent ensemble pour créer des partenariats entre les universitaires, l'industrie, les gouvernements et le secteur privé, surtout dans nos centres d'expertise ici à Toronto, mais aussi à Waterloo, à Montréal et à Alberta. U of T's Jeff Hinton is just one of those very, very important leaders who we know is here today, and he's known as the godfather of deep learning. Joshua Bengio in Montreal is a world expert in artificial neural networks. And Richard Sutton at the University of Alberta is a pioneer in reinforcement learning. We in Canada already have such incredible strength in this area. This research community is helping to create new jobs for so many of our highly skilled graduates, the computer science students, the engineers, the neuroscientists, as well as the critical thinkers throughout our social services and humanities. We recognize the incredible potential of artificial intelligence. My colleague, Minister Kirsty Duncan, I can tell you, is a tireless advocate around the federal cabinet table for the importance of science to be seen and heard and for our research community to be supported along the way. And I think most importantly for our discussion today, you'll know that in last week's budget, we dedicated $125 million for a strategy, a pan-Canadian artificial intelligence strategy for this country. And I know that all of the people here in this room are somehow part of it. It's your networks, your industry connections, your knowledge that will help us turn what's happening into the lab into real-world applications. Our investments, and investments like the one being made by the province of Ontario and so many private sector partners here, are going to make and stimulate a collaborative effort that will make a real difference. A leader in the area of artificial intelligence, the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, CIFAR, will be responsible for administering the funding for this new strategy. Subject to passage of the appropriate legislation, the federal government intends to contribute $40 to $50 million over the next 5 years to the Vector Institute to advance and support the cause of artificial intelligence here in Toronto. These funds are going to be used to support the core activities of the Institute, the Canada CIFAR chairs in AI science, graduate training, and the participation of the chairs and trainees in national artificial intelligence activities. So I can tell you that our budget this year, this event today, our government is all about building the future for Canadians that we want to build together, creating those innovative sectors, creating those great jobs for the future so that we can be more and more successful together. So on behalf of the federal government, we appreciate all of your strong partnership as we work together to achieve this vision. Thank you very much.
So, our next speaker is the Mayor of Toronto. But it's not just the Mayor of Toronto. He's the Mayor of the city that actually makes all this possible. In the end, what is this about? It's about selling to the world the thought that you want to live here. You want to have your kids here. You want to make friends here. And you know that whatever your race, religion, or sexual orientation, you can feel comfortable in Toronto. We have a mayor who believes that, who has fought for that, and is a great Canadian. I welcome Mayor John Tory.
Well, Premier and Ministers, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Michelle Holland, who is a newly appointed by me technology advocate for the City of Toronto, who's supposed to help us push forward with more of what we're seeing today, much more, in innovation and in particular the inclusion of women in that success that we're enjoying in this city. And I wanted to say we're here at Mars as well, and this is something that is, I was just in India, and there's a number of things they know about Toronto. They don't know enough yet about some of what we're here celebrating today, but they know about TIFF, and they know about Mars. And that just tells you something. You know, some things that we sit around sometimes criticizing at home are things that people know internationally as a great success story and a far-sighted investment by the Government of Ontario to move this forward and to have this building here today where we can be announcing the Vector Institute. And it's just one more thing to put us on the map as a beacon to the world. A beacon to the world in substance. We're demonstrating, along with cities across Canada, what is possible when the values of diversity and curiosity and collaboration and compassion are applied to our national interests and to the interests of our citizens. We're sending bold signals about the kind of place that we are and the kind of talent that we have. And these are the things that Ed just made reference to and the Minister made reference to and the Premier. And they're things that we don't sell often enough because they are the things that I think separate us from other places. There is seen to be a Toronto and a Canadian way of life that is increasingly recognized around the world, especially in these times. And the Vector Institute is one more thing that is going to allow us to distinguish ourselves and to put it together with that way of life that we have here that is so important and to lead in turn to the creation of new jobs and new opportunities for our people. We know that, and it's been said well by others here today, and we've seen it as we've walked around, that artificial intelligence is reshaping the global economy. And I want to speak on behalf of the people of the City of Toronto in saying how grateful we are for all of the investments that are being celebrated here today by the Government of Canada, by the Government of Ontario, by the private sector, with great leadership, as always, from the University of Toronto, so that cities, not just Toronto, but cities plural, Edmonton, Montreal, the cooperation that is going to arise out of this, that the Premier mentioned, is very important as well, so that it makes Canada well equipped to be the leader in artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning. Toronto is already an emerging centre of global innovation and technology, information technology. The growth of our innovation sector is opening up huge opportunities, and I was saying earlier this morning, and something else I was at, it's preserving and protecting the existing economy and making sure that we're able to take full advantage of the change that's being brought, as well as creating new opportunities for the future. And it's allowing us to take full advantage of the incredibly diverse and highly skilled talent pool that we have here. It's another thing that they know about when you go overseas representing this city or this province or this country. They know we have a rich pool of talent here that is second to none in the world. And our challenge becomes to make sure we can keep attracting the best and the brightest. And I noticed as we walked around and asking people where they had been previously that a lot of the people we're attracting to a venture like this have come from somewhere else, and we have to keep them coming. But as I think it was Minister Morneau said, we have to keep people here as well. Ed mentioned that as well. We have to keep people here as well. We have this wonderful system of education here in which the public makes a significant investment in making sure we have as high a rate of post-secondary education as anywhere else in the world, which also is an asset we can go out and sell. But we have to make sure more of those people stay here. And so my job becomes one, as Ed suggested, of working with these other governments and working with other cities, and I'll make a reference to that in a moment, to make sure that this continues to be an attractive place to live and to build your life as well as to build your career. Because I think that is something that is a great sales feature for this city as well. Cette initiative nous donnera l'opportunité de collaborer avec les entreprises, nos universités remarquables et des autres villes à travers le Canada afin de s'assurer que notre pays soit considéré comme le meilleur endroit pour construire l'économie du futur et de créer des bons emplois pour nos diplômes et diplômes autour du monde. I want us to lead. I want us to compete. I want this to be the home of people who are the disruptors, That's what the Uber issue was really all about. I mean, it seemed like it was about a lot of things, and it was a painful experience in some respects, certainly as a politician, to go through. But it was really about whether we were going to send the right kind of signal to the rest of the world, that we were open to and embraced people who were disruptors and who came to say there was going to be a new order, and then made sure that that happened in as orderly a fashion as possible. And it becomes our challenge here in the context of maintaining a livable city to make sure that the benefits of what we're doing today and all the things associated with it are shared by as many people as possible who live in this great city. I said I wanted to make just brief mention of collaboration, and as mayor of the country's largest city, I want to make it very clear that it is my full intention, I pledge myself to collaborate with the other cities in the country, because what's good for Edmonton, what's good for Montreal, what's good for London, what's good for Ottawa is good for Toronto, and vice versa, and all of that is good for Canada. And I want people to think, regardless of where they settle or where they establish their businesses or where they study, that where they can have an impact, you want them to answer Canada. Where they can see themselves reflected in a place's leadership, in its talent pool, you want them to answer Canada. That will benefit Toronto. That will benefit the Toronto-Waterloo corridor, which is so important to us. When people ask themselves why it's important to embrace others from all backgrounds and diverse walks of life and show them what they can achieve together, I want people to think of Canada, because that's the advantage that's playing out across the nation and across the world, and the message that's being sent out across the world, especially at this time, by this city. And that's the beacon that we're creating through the Vector Institute. And so I look forward to the role that it's going to play in keeping and attracting smart people, in launching new enterprises, in keeping us at the forefront, and making sure that we can all have a greater degree of prosperity here, so that in turn that can help us to finance the things that are necessary to maintain a great quality of life. I extend my congratulations to all of those involved in bringing this together and so quickly, including one of our great citizens. And I should say he's not just helped the Premier, he's helped me with the housing problem. He's done so much for the United Way. He really is one of our great citizens, and that's the highest accolade I think we can extend to anybody. Congratulations to all. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marc Gertler, the President of the University of Toronto. Now, core to our strategy is to try to build on the incredible deep learning team, and I underscore team, at the University of Toronto, and to offer scholars around the world the freedom of working for the Institute, but the prestige of being associated with a world-famous university. With Marc as a partner, we have someone who is not only seen as a leading person and leading one of the great academic institutions in the world, but as someone who is not only respected but liked across Canada and able to build links to other universities. Marc has been a great partner throughout this journey. The President of the University of Toronto, Marc Gertler.
What an amazing moment. Well, thank you, Ed. Thank you for your truly inspired leadership in making this wonderful day possible. Premier Wynne, Minister Morneau, Minister Moridi, Mayor Tory, ladies and gentlemen, the governments of Ontario and Canada and our industry partners deserve such huge credit for the visionary leadership represented in today's announcement. On behalf of the University of Toronto and our sister universities, thank you for enabling us to seize this incredibly exciting opportunity. Through the Vector Institute, together we will confirm and strengthen our shared leadership in the global AI revolution and help reap the economic and social rewards for people across the Toronto region, Ontario, and indeed all of Canada. At a time when other countries are investing heavily in AI and are aggressively recruiting Canadian talent, your investment will enable us to train the next generation of global AI leaders, to create and scale up cutting-edge new companies, and to keep them all here. It will have a vast impact on a wide range of sectors, including banking and fintech, ICT, engineering, transportation, personalized medicine, law, and more. And it will be the source of many as yet unimagined breakthroughs. In fact, today's investment may prove to be as important as the investment the U.S. government made in the Advanced Research Projects Agency half a century ago. That agency's research was crucial in the development of something we now call the Internet. Its significance could not have been understood fully at the time, but now more than 20% of the world's GDP is dependent on that one transformative innovation. Today's investment represents a similar opportunity to drive innovation, job creation, and long-term growth in Canada. Indeed, the Vector Institute will be a crucial asset in bridging our economy from the third to the fourth industrial revolution. Our brilliant researchers here at U of T, and there are many here in the room today, are eager and ready to take up the challenge, working with their peers at sister institutions across the country and across the province. In collaboration with leading private sector partners and colleagues at other global universities, and I can tell you as I travel around the world in the last month or two, the word is getting out and the excitement about what's happening here in Toronto is really building. Working together with all of those groups, they form a critical mass of talent in the field of deep learning and neural networks, centered on the towering figure of my U of T colleague, Jeff Hinton, who you're going to meet in a minute. Together, they will open new horizons of prosperity for Canadians, for their families, and for their communities. And so on behalf of the University of Toronto, I would like to close by saying to our provincial, federal, and industry partners, thank you again for making this historic day possible. Thanks.
So, we now come to what is clearly going to be the most interesting part of today's session. As I start to think about this, writing this introduction, I said, well, how do you introduce someone who has actually changed the world? I remember when I first met Jeff, I couldn't help but say, normally you just say, hey, I'm Ed Clark, but I had to say, because it was what I felt at the time, I am truly honored to meet you. What has struck me most, though, is that like all truly great people, he didn't insist that tasks were below his dignity. As I dialed for dollars, he was out pitching, selling our vision, meeting with people who had no idea what he had done in the world. In doing all that, he constantly underscored the fact that the Toronto team is not one person. In fact, it's an outstanding team of professors and students, some of whom might well, too, also change the world. Our Chief Scientific Advisor, Jeff Hinton.
Hi. I'd like to start by thanking the Premier, the Ministers and the Mayor for their extremely generous support. I'd like to thank Tommy Putin and Jordan Jacobs and Rich Zamel, who were the people who initiated the idea for the Institute and got things rolling. Me and Ed only came into it later. I'd also like to thank the other machine learning professors at the University of Toronto who are going to form the initial spine of the Institute. And now I'm going to do something which I was strongly advised not to do. I'm actually going to give a lecture on how this stuff works. Okay, so there used to be one way to get a computer to do what you wanted, which is you figure out how you do it yourself, and then you explain it to the computer in excruciating detail, and that's called programming. Now there's two ways to get a computer to do what you want. First, you have to do a bit of programming. You tell the computer how to pretend to be a neural network. And once it knows how to pretend to be a neural network, you can then get it to do any particular task by just showing it examples of the input and output. What's more, you can get it to do tasks that you don't know how to do. So here's an example. For 50 years, people in AI would have liked to have been able to look at that image and produce that caption, but they didn't know how. We can do it, but we don't know how we do it. Now you can just train a computer to do it. You showed about 1 million images and about 1 million captions, and after a while it just gets it. We'd like you to get it quicker, but that's how it is right now. Now you might wonder, well, how does that work? And even if you don't wonder, you're going to hear. A neuron gets some inputs. On each of these inputs, it has a weight that it can adapt. And then it gives an output that depends on the value coming in along the input line times the weight on the input. And for the neurons we typically use, if it doesn't get much, it doesn't output much. If it gets highly active lines with highly active weights, with big weights on them, it gives a great big output. That's it. That's the computing element. Now the only question is, how do we put a bunch of those together to do things like turn pixels into a caption? So we arrange them in layers. We put in the input at the bottom, so that might be pixels. We have many intermediate layers. I couldn't be bothered to draw more than 2. And then we have output neurons at the top that make decisions. And so there's only one problem left, which is all those little color blobs you see there, the red and green things, which are positive and negative weights, you just have to set their values. If you know how to set their values, you can get this neural net to do anything. So how do we set their values? Well, I'm going to explain an algorithm that is obviously going to work. It's obvious to everybody. It's just a bit slow. What you do is you take an example and you put it in the bottom. And let's suppose we're trying to tell the difference between cats and dogs. And you see what the neural network thinks with its current weights. And this neural network thinks it's a bit more likely to be a dog than a cat. So that's not good. So what we do is we pick one of the weights and we change the size of that weight, like that. And you'll see if I go backwards and forwards, that when we change that weight, it thinks it's a bit less dog and a bit more cat. So we say, hey, that's a good change, we'll keep that change. Then we go to another weight with the same image, and we say, what if I change that weight? So we change that weight. We were lucky. That made it even more cat-like. So we keep that change. And we go on till we've gone through all million weights for this one image, and then we go through all million images, and this will take sort of tens of thousands of years, but it would work. It would work in evolutionary time. Now we just need a simple piece of math, and instead of changing a weight and measuring the effect, what we do is we just compute what the effect would be if we were to change the weight, and then we can do it for all the weights at the same time. So now what we do is we send the picture through the net, we look at the outputs, and we send a signal backwards through the net that's busy computing how to change all those weights so as to make it a bit more cat-like and a bit less dog-like. That algorithm is called backpropagation. It was invented many years ago and didn't work for a long time, but now and it always worked, it just didn't work very well. But now we've got big databases and big computers, and it works really well. So the main funding for this in Canada came from NSERC. They funded this curiosity-driven research for many, many years. They're still funding it. In 2009, 2 of my students at the University of Toronto discovered they could make a better speech recognizer this way. It was better than any existing speech recognizer. And pretty soon, all the big companies were using it, and it was in production in the Google Android in 2012. In that same year, 2 other students at the University of Toronto showed that this technique is much better at recognizing objects and images. It kind of halved the error rate of the best computer vision systems. And within a year, all the leading computer vision researchers had switched to using this algorithm. In 2014, researchers at Google and in parallel researchers at the University of Montreal discovered the same techniques can be used for translation. That is, you'd have thought to translate between languages, you have to understand something about language. Turns out you don't. You just take fragments in the first language, and you have a big neural net that doesn't know anything, and you tell it what the fragments in the second language it should output. You showed examples, and after you've shown it millions of examples, it can just translate. And what's more, it's a better translator than anything else. If you translate between English and Chinese on the web now using Google, it uses a neural network, and the neural network was trained with no knowledge, just this algorithm. So what's coming next? Well, it's obvious that most medical images will soon be interpreted by systems like this. In fact, you'll pretty soon, in a few years, you'll have an app on your cell phone, and you just point it at a patch of skin, and it'll tell you whether that's a cancer. It'll normally say, stop worrying, it isn't. It's obvious that we're going to get much better personal assistants, and they're actually going to know a lot about us and know how to hold a conversation, which they're not very good at present. And finally, it's obvious that any company with a lot of data that wants to predict things from its data is going to be able to do that much better using these networks, probably using networks running on the cloud. Okay, that's it.
So there's just one little requirement. You're not allowed to leave the room unless you now, having had that lecture, can explain the origin of the name Vector for the Institute. And I'm not going to try to explain it. No. Anyway, it's been a thrill to have all of you here. It's a thrill to see this coming together, as I say, of academics, government, and enterprises and entrepreneurs to create something that I think will look back and say, this too changed Canada. Thank you very much.